Dirty Birds, what's up? And welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. I'm your host, Will McFadden. I am joined by Tori, McElhaney, and Terrin Waack, and we are here to celebrate a 34-7 Falcons victory over the 2-12 New York Giants, now 2-13. But the Falcons moved to 8-7 on the season, and it is their largest margin of victory since Week 12 of 2020 when they beat the Oakland Raiders 43-6. And there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about today, but I think we have to talk about what kind of dominated the news all throughout the week, and that was the starting debut of Michael Penix Jr. And, you know, there were a lot of storylines, how he's worked with starting receivers or hasn't, but I don't think any of that really manifested itself out there on the field. He looked calm, he looked poised, and the offense looked steady with him under control. So, Tori, what was your first impression of Michael Penix Jr.?
I thought he was everything that he was advertised to be throughout the pre-draft process, and he displayed a lot of things that I think made the Falcons fall in love with him in the first place. You talk about the poise, you talk about the calmness, let's talk about the arm strength and the arm talent.
Yeah.
And there was a point in time where I felt like every single time he was dropping back, it presented an opportunity for the Falcons to make a big play. And I think that is maybe not something that I've felt since perhaps the Matt Ryan days. And I do think about just the fact that Michael Penix, what he was able to do by way of putting together a clean operation and taking care of the ball and not giving up sacks and not taking tackles for a loss and doing all those things to keep the team and the offense on track is what, to be honest, this offense has been missing at the quarterback position over the last month. And it was the reason why I think they made the decision that they did to bring in Michael Penix as the starting quarterback. And I just thought that he did everything that I was kind of thinking that he would. And that's a testament, I think, to one, his own personal commitment, but also to the development that he's had even while he's been in Atlanta. Because I think something that, Will, I know you and I talked a lot about is like one of the major critiques of Michael Penix going into the pre-draft process was how he didn't ever really want to throw it over the middle.
Yeah.
A lot of his big plays are down the sideline. Mm-hmm. And it was something that he was knocked for a lot in his final year at Washington. He threw over the middle over and over and over today, which is a good sign, I think, of his confidence in himself and also the confidence of what the parts of the offense that he knew he could exploit against this Giants defense.
Yeah, he kind of attacked every part of the field. And that was, to your point, like something in college at the University of Washington. He was Captain Ahab. He was just chasing the big white whale on every single throw and launching it down the sideline or going deep down the middle. But Terrin, it was fascinating to see his connection with Drake London, with Darnell Mooney, with Bijan Robinson, given the fact that he really hasn't worked with those guys at all this season. You know, were you surprised that it looked as clean and crisp as it did out there?
No, not necessarily, because something that has been praised about Michael Penix Jr. this whole time is how mature he is, how much experience he had in the college football realm, that this isn't a new game for him. They might be new bodies, but plays are plays at the end of the day. And I think you're going to see him learn and grow with the team, with the offense. That connection is only going to build with more and more game reps, but I think you're seeing him learn how to run in the moment. Like, he can't crawl. There is no crawling. He's been thrown into his first NFL start, and then he's going to have another NFL start, and then another NFL start, and it's going to keep going where there's not really time for him to chill. Like, he's just been thrown into a playoff mix, essentially, and you're going to see him continue to build those connections in the moment, in real time. Like, we're going to watch this new offense, even though we're in week 16 going into week 17, build in these final few weeks.
That's such a good point too, because it's something that we've talked a lot about in the week leading up, is the fact that Michael Penix did not have a lot of reps with guys like Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson at all up until, honestly, this week. And a lot of guys have talked about staying after practice in order to get those reps and trying to feel comfortable. And
Darnell Mooney said it took a lot of hard work this week.
Yeah. and so, Terrin, to your point of like, this is something that you have to almost like, you have to quickly build these connections. And I thought it was really interesting that we are seeing those connections be forged in real time, because even Michael Penix said himself after the game, he was asked, about his overall evaluation about his play. And he was like, of course there are some moments that I want to have back. And he pointed out this one specific moment, which was in the third quarter. It was a touchdown pass to Drake. And he made the comment that he was like, Drake's a big body receiver. If I throw it up to him and I put it up high enough, he has the ability to come down and get it. He was like, but in that moment, and it was an incompletion because the receiver the defender was able to get a hand on it and kind of break up the pass.
He left it within range of kind of the defender.
Exactly. And it was more kind of right to Drake's face instead of up higher for Drake to go up and get. And I think that was incredibly indicative of what he is actively learning as we're watching him. Now he knows, what, on that little, fade, it's like, I need to get the ball up to Drake higher, because he has the ability to go up and get it. Now he's learned that. Now you can apply it to next week, the week after, and whatever holds for the future.
Well, even with that said, we're watching him learn in real time, and yet he didn't make any major mistakes. There was the interception, but I don't think anyone can put that on him since it was in Kyle Pitt's hands and then it bopped out. And so it
could have very easily almost been a fumble, right? Because it was, I think Kyle was making definitionally a football move. He was extending to almost try to get the ball across the goal line.
Yeah. So it goes both ways, but it is a blemish on the record that doesn't reflect his performance. Because when you look at it, it's 0 touchdowns, but an interception. But I don't think that does any justice to what we saw today.
Yeah, I don't think it's indicative of his actual full performance from start to finish.
Yeah.
And I think something that we can't overlook is the fact that it was an incredibly clean performance from him.
That's what they needed.
And that's
all
what they
needed was a clean and efficient performance out of this rookie.
Yeah.
Yep. And so he was 66% completion rate for 202 yards, no touchdowns to pick, but 2 drops, that interception. Without that, he's at 78%. And he did all of this while navigating the pocket really well, kind of throwing the ball away at some crucial times. Next Gen Stats had this note. He did not take a sack despite being pressured on 14 dropbacks, which was just under 50%. Like that, he was under pressure. He handled it really well. He played, like you said, kind of error-free football outside of, again, the one note that is not really on him.
Right.
And he attacked all the parts of the field. So this was a kind of proof of concept of why I think Atlanta decided to select Michael Penix Jr. at number 8, which they did take some heat for at the time.
Yeah.
But the vision, and they said when you have kind of that conviction in a player, it's really nice to see it come to fruition out there on the field on Sunday.
And let's be honest, the Falcons really needed that performance out of him. The fact of the matter is that since 2021, the Falcons have ran out 6 different starting quarterbacks. Michael Penix Jr. was number 6. Yeah. And that's what I wrote in my column post game, is that you can kind of, if you're this front office, if you're this coaching staff, if you're this organization, you can breathe a sigh of relief because of how he performed against the Giants. But I also added the caveat that you can breathe a sigh of relief for right now. Because you need that to be able to, you need to sustain that there needs to be stability at the quarterback position, because the best teams in the league have that. Right. And for the Falcons to be a long time sustained competitor, that's the missing piece. That's not what they've had in the last few years. And I think that's going to be the marker of what we remember about this era of Falcons football.
Well, let's also keep in mind, they played the Giants.
And let's also keep in mind that they got 2 defensive touchdowns and another great game from Bijan Robinson. So I think what we're trying to collectively express is that this was a great first start, right? I don't think Michael Penix is putting the team on his back in any way, shape, or form now. No. But it was important in the quote that Raheem had after the game that I thought was so telling, and really the main reason for optimism is he said the plan came a little bit sooner, but the kid was ready. We had a lot of time to develop him. The kid did a great job himself of developing himself and getting ready for that moment where it wasn't too big. And it just made me think back to the night of the draft after they selected him. And at the time, what really stuck out to me was Raheem Morris saying, we're putting the onus on Michael Penix to learn from Kirk Cousins. And I think he has done that. I think he has stayed ready for any single moment when he needs to enter the game this season. And that is so rare for a first-year player to do when they are just in the midst of maybe the longest stretch of their life. Yeah. So it speaks to his maturity. To to the highest level, I think.
And I also go back to the quote of what Raheem said tonight, where he said Michael Penix played near flawless football. Almost flawless football. And that's kind of the crux of it. Like, how many rookie quarterbacks can you say that about in their very first start, that it was almost flawless football? And I think that's what the Falcons needed. They needed the quarterback position not to get in the way of the game.
Yep.
I think that's the best way to put it.
And I think that Michael Penix did not get in the way of the game. He didn't stand. He wasn't the difference in the Falcons losing this game.
Right.
And I think that is more than anything what I take away from this whole decision to switch out Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Near flawless, that's like flawless with one S, right?
Yeah. Close enough.
But somebody who did play flawless football today was Bijan Robinson. As he has kind of for pretty much all of this season, he was, again, really the focal point of this offense. He's turned into a workhorse that, quite honestly, I wasn't sure. I knew that he was going to be any single down threat. But kind of the way that the Lions have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, I wondered if he could be that 25, 26 carry a game workhorse and consistently do that week in and week out. And dang, if he hasn't done it this season. I mean, Terrin, what did you think of Bijan's performance and really just kind of the continued excellence he's had all season?
I think you're seeing why he was a first-round draft pick in the first place. I mean, he's had, is it 9 100-yard games in the past 10 games?
No, he's had 11
100-yard scrimmage games this
scrimmage
season.
games this season.
Oh, this season overall?
Yeah, 9 in the last 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
But 11 overall, which is a record.
So I was right the first time, too.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I was just adding.
You're adding the 11th one in there.
Yeah.
Most since work done in 2005.
Yeah.
So he's doing well.
So
all that to say, we're nitpicking one 100-yard game. But I think it goes back. This is also going to circle back to Michael Penix Jr., of course. But Tori being like earlier in this week, the run game is a rookie's best friend. And I think they did a really good job of leaning on the run game, but also giving Penix opportunities to pass. It was like balanced in a way that allowed Penix to test his hand, but also not be put in a situation where he is pressured to do so, if that makes sense.
Also, you get a significant enough lead, just run the ball down their throats until they can't stop it. And that's kind of what they ended up being able to do in the back half of this game, was just hand the ball off to Tyler and Bijan and just they had how many, I don't know, just off the top of my head, but I want to say like 2 of their drives in the second half were over 10 plus plays, and a lot of them were runs and designed runs. And then if you didn't pick up a first down on first and second down, I thought Michael Penix did a really good job on some third and longs, connecting on some big time throws and some big time plays over the middle.
That one in the second quarter where he threw it, and in the moment, I kind of thought it was about to be picked.
I did too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it just levels right up over the Giants defender and lands perfectly into the arms of Darnell Mooney on that right sideline. That's beautiful stuff to layer it over and have that a level of touch. But most notably, I think in the red zone is where that reliability on the run game was most impactful, because that is probably the hardest area on the field for a quarterback to have success, let alone a rookie quarterback. So to be able to hand the ball off to Bijan and have him just like walk over to the corner,
that was crazy.
That was such a cool touchdown.
Like literally there was no one around him, and he's just like, here I go.
Just do that all the time.
Yeah.
I almost thought the whistle went because he was everybody's just walking.
Right. No, legit. I did too. I was like, there must have been like, did someone jump? Because it was on the other side of the field. But no, I think
sweet time to walk in.
Bijan Robinson is the type of athlete and the type of player that I think any offensive coordinator would just be like salivating to like play call for. And I know me personally, I've seen a lot of really good running backs play. Bijan Robinson is one of one.
Yes.
In his ability to, I've said this before, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, but like I have never seen a player be able to feel the game like he does. Be able to feel defenders and anticipate their moves and their decisions like in a split second. And it's just, he's a very special talent, and he's someone who doesn't come around very often. But then you also have him being like, I really, really was upset at myself and I was mad at myself because I got tripped up at the 2-yard line and I could have given Michael his first passing touchdown. And he was like, and this is Bijan, and he's like, I ran over to the huddle after that and was just like, Mike, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And it's like the most Bijan Robinson thing ever.
That's the most human moment, just like in the middle of a football game to be like, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
Me. I'm so sorry. And then like a play later when Drake didn't come down with the ball that I was talking about before where Mike wanted to get it up higher. And he also came back to the huddle and was like, I'm so sorry, man. Like, I think
you could tell how much they wanted it for him.
Yeah,
right?
100%. I think that goes to like the confidence that this group, these players feel about the change that was made. To be completely honest.
No, and I don't know what more Michael Penix could want out of his teammates.
Yeah.
You know, especially like this is his first start and you have all these people being like, we wanted this for you.
Yeah. You got Darnell Mooney calling up his old high school quarterback who's a lefty saying, hey, come stay with me for the week so I can get ready for this kid that's going in. Like, who does that?
And then, Will, you were talking to Justin Simmons in the locker room and Justin Simmons being like, I've gone against him every single day in practice because he's on the scout team up until this point and he's going against the first team defense. And this is someone who personally made me better. Yeah. That's a direct quote from
an all-pro.
From an all-pro safety.
Multiple defensive players, because I had the defensive sidebar where like, we wanted to do this for Penix.
Yeah.
The rookie quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just think it's a good, everybody always feels good after a win, but this was the first time coming off of a win that I really don't have anything to nitpick.
Yeah.
I really, truly don't. There have been a lot of wins over the course of this season where I could sit there and be like, oh, they needed more here. They needed more here. They needed less here, or whatever. This is the first time that I'm kind of sitting here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium feeling like that's how it should have looked.
Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. They're marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers. They hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's. This is probably podcasting malpractice to like wait this long to get to the actual star of today's show, and that is the defense.
I know, right?
But that's just like how much great stuff we have to talk about, which is awesome. But Jesse Bates' pick six in the second quarter, I think, flipped this entire game.
Do we think he is the best free agency signing for the Falcons ever?
Ooh, it's a great debate.
Should we table this for an off-season podcast?
It would be a great topic. I'm going to say I'm only saying no because of the longevity point.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do think that John Abraham did it for many seasons. Tony Gonzalez did it for a while there. Michael Turner did, but like on a game-to-game impact basis, Jesse Bates is on the Mount Rushmore at the very least. Right?
It's a conversation that I think needs to be had.
Let's pencil it down.
Because I truly think there is no one more clutch. Yeah. When the Falcons need someone to make a play, 9 times out of 10, it is Jesse Bates, and it's a big play. It's a momentum shifting play, which is usually a turnover, which we got to see today.
I don't know how he does it.
But he couldn't do it alone, could he?
No, he could not. Our boy Cade Nellis.
Oh, sorry. I'm wrong.
Not wrong. He was the one that caused the pressure that made Drew Lock throw that interception.
Sure. Oh, but in the locker room, Jesse was giving D. Alford all the credit because D recognized how the play was going to go before it did play out. And so he made a change when they were in cover 3 and they had it disguised to look like man. Am I right on that?
Cover 3 looks like man. Yeah. They were in cover 3. I think he alerted Jesse basically to, hey, we've seen this in our over the week prep. When they're in this bunch set, all right, kind of here's what we would expect to have coming. And what Jesse said is it alerted them to now look at the quarterback's eyes, right? Yeah. Because I think they kind of knew here's the route concept we're going to get. So I don't have to be totally staring down the receivers. I'm free to now read the quarterback. And as the robber in kind of that cover 3 look, Jesse played it perfectly.
Right.
I think it's interesting because D. Alford has not had the best moments this year. And there have been some moments where I think a lot of people have questioned him and his abilities as the team starting nickel. And to hear that, I think is a really nice plus for someone like D. Alford.
Yeah,
I think
he doubled down on that.
It goes to show that maybe the nickel out of all of the members of the secondary, like safeties get a ton of recognition as almost being that like quarterback of the defense. But I do think a slot corner has so much responsibility from a communication standpoint because they are that direct link to the defensive line, to the linebackers. They're the closest to the action. So I do think that is an essential part of being a good nickel corner. And obviously it paid off with D right there. So, I thought that pick six just changed the energy, changed the dynamic, the momentum, and it came from one of your best players who the fans just immediately, I think when you saw what was happening, it like clicked and it's like, this is going the distance.
Yeah.
55-yard touchdown return.
It was so much fun. So Matthew Judon also
a crazy play.
Got the first touchdown in his 9 years as an NFL player, which is crazy to say. And it happened in a little bit of a like bizarre fashion.
Yeah.
He was hilarious in the locker room
What'd he say?
afterward. Because he also gave credit to someone else.
Zach Harrison?
Yeah, Zach Harrison.
These guys I need my guys to be a little more selfish. I need my defensive players to be like,
He's like,
look
he
at
got
me.
his big paw on the ball.
Oh, I love it when they call him paws.
And he's like, sometimes it just like literally lands on you, and that's what happened. Like he couldn't like find the ball, and then all of a sudden it was just in his arms, and he's like, "Oh, got to run!"
Early Christmas gift.
Oh my gosh!
And he said he didn't know how to like handle the touchdown celebration or anything like that. Zach Harrison said he was late to the touchdown celebration, and he was just dancing on his own.
Arnold Ebiketie said he was confused.
Yeah,
Didn't know what was happening.
was the funniest thing because he was like, it was a screenplay. So when the ball got thrown, I turned like upfield to go like find the screen guy, and then I turned back around and like everybody's in the end zone just like celebrating, and I don't know what happened, so I just ran down and celebrated.
So good. I thought that another guy that like Zach Harrison, I think is someone who's flying under the radar in terms of like how important he is to this defensive front and how well I think he's been playing. I know everybody is going to talk about Arnold Ebiketie, which they should.
Yep.
That's the thing. It's like I'm not discrediting anything else, but I think Zach Harrison, you should also be talking about what he's doing and the push that he's getting up front that kind of allows some things to work out for guys like Arnold Ebiketie and tonight, Matthew Judon.
The defense just as of late, since the bye, I want to know what happened in those self-scouting meetings, and no one will share.
All they'll say is like, we're now playing better as a collective group. We're gelling together.
Yeah, we're, like the play call and the players are in sync. Every single time somebody said that, I was like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
I
Say that to me.
Jimmy Lake for specifics, and he said no.
They're holding that, whatever the answer is.
They're holding it so close.
Yeah, those cards are so close to their chest, and it's like, I get it. Like, I understand.
But tell us.
But also let us know.
We promise we won't say it on the podcast live for everybody to hear.
Yeah, we promise
millions of our listeners.
Millions. Hey, millions.
Don't disparage our millions of listeners,
I know.
Tori.
Sorry, millions of listeners. Looking out for you guys.
I want to get to Arnold Ebiketie here in 1 second, but I just had one note that I feel like speaks to not just the splash plays that the defense made, but the level of like consistency they had through really when the game was just in the balance. After giving up 74 yards in the first quarter, and New York's only touchdown came on the first play of the second quarter. So it was really just that first quarter that they were kind of getting going. They then gave up 34 yards in the second quarter and 13 yards in the third quarter. That is insane to only have 47 yards in those middle two quarters, which really, in most games, I think dictates and decides the action.
Middle eight, question mark?
That's so great. I mean, but this back-to-back with the Raiders game and this game, like your defense, they've been saying these games are must-wins. Yeah. The defense is playing
acting that way.
like it's a must-win game.
Yeah, and I think too, you're going to have your hardest. I know we're going to get to this, but you're going to have your hardest test coming up in Washington against the Commanders. Who, let's be honest, the game they played today against the Eagles was superb.
Yes,
but they're going to be an incredibly tough offense to face, and it's going to be a big test for this defense. How much have you improved since the bye week? You've played a lot of offenses that I think everybody's kind of like, wah, wah. Like it is what it is. Like you've played well against the Giants and the Raiders, and
not so well against the Vikings. Another good offense,
right? Yeah, but you also held the Chargers like back a little bit. They don't have that many offensive weapons outside of Lad McConkey. So I think it's one of those things that you're looking at this defense, and it's like, all right, if you are who you say you are, go out and perform against one of the most consistent and interesting offenses that are in the league right now.
Yeah. And the Cowboys, Saints, and Packers have yet to play, and they're the only teams that could, I think, catch the Falcons in this category, but there's 16 sacks after the bye week. or since week 13 are the most in the NFL. That's crazy, considering what we were talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks leading up to the bye about where is the pass rush.
Yeah.
They turned that around not to just a good degree, but to like the best degree in the league.
And I have to give credit where credit is due. I didn't think they could do it. I said on this podcast multiple times that a bye week, and I wrote about this, a bye week is not going to change your pass rush issues. Boy, did they prove me wrong. I think that's why I want to know.
Your football degree is revoked.
Right. Like, I think that's why I really care greatly about knowing what the true measuring of like how they did that. Yeah. Because I didn't think they could.
Yeah.
So what's the secret sauce?
It's a credit to the coaching. It's a credit to the players. You know,
I think Grady Jarrett said it earlier this week too. Saying that it's sacks come in bunches doesn't give them enough credit for how hard they worked. Yeah. He's like, it wasn't luck. Like we worked really, really hard. So to say it's in bunches isn't fair. Like they are coming in that way, but that's not why.
So let's really quickly, Arnold Ebiketie and Caden Ellis are now tied for the team lead with 5 sacks. They each had a sack today. Arnold Ebiketie's 4 sacks in the last 4 weeks are tied with TJ Watt for the most in the NFL. What?
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Also, Caden Ellis, where Caden Ellis goes, this defense follows.
And Tori follows right behind as well.
And I'm right there.
As an avid disciple of Caden Ellis.
I told y'all from go that this was going to be a different year for Caden Ellis. And I don't know what the exact stat was. I'm going to try and pull it up and try and find it really quickly. But Caden Ellis has been so good for this defense as of late. He finished with a team high 4 pressures and a sack on 13 pass rushes versus the Giants, including the 2 turnovers that were caused by his pressure. He's generated, going into this game, he generated 29 pressures, which is tied for the most by a non-defensive lineman this season. He has been so freaking good for this team.
Tori, you had to look that up. I've prepared it for you right on this sheet, on this outline that you clearly don't read.
Sorry.
You're just telling on yourself. Speaking of other great Caden Ellis content, though, go check out Terrin's lovely story. It's a wonderful time to celebrate the Ellis family and the incredible child that they brought to all of us. So great job by Caden Ellis and the entire Ellis clan. But Arnold Ebiketie, we mentioned how good he has been. Tori, did you have a favorite defensive performance before we wrap up on that side of the ball?
I mean, Caden Ellis. No, I'm kidding. It's hard to pick one because I thought that there were so many moments. Jesse Bates pick 6, Matthew Judon's pick 6, all the stops. They forced a couple 3 and outs. Like this defense overall is playing very well right now. And again, to the point that I was making earlier, you hope it continues because if it continues, it gives the Falcons a chance to win almost every single time they're out there.
Absolutely. What about you, Terrin? Did you have one that really, really stood out to you above the rest, or was it a group performance?
It was a good performance overall, but I'm going to give my flowers in this regard to Matthew Judon.
Oh, okay.
Because he's just funny. It was really funny talking to him about it afterward. But I also think something that stood out to me was his ownership of like, normally I'm this big pass rush guy and it hasn't been that way this season. Like he took that on and was open about it in the locker room. He's like, but my teammates have been there for me and like have supported me and just kept encouraging me that to finally get something, even if it wasn't like my normal. I mean, he did have a sack today, so there was that.
Yeah.
But to get something even more with this touchdown meant a lot to him.
I think that's such a, gosh, I feel like we're pulling on the heartstrings with this podcast today.
Yeah.
You know, Jesse giving D. Alford his flowers, Matthew Judon giving, you know,
himself his flowers.
Well, no, Zach Harrison his flowers, Bijan Robinson and Drake London really wanting to get a touchdown pass for Michael Penix. Like there's a lot of like love going around right now.
Even Jesse was like, Judon, he's got a lot of criticism and he's been the same guy since he walked in this building. Just to see him to continue to go to work every single day, I'm excited for him. But then he called him a clown.
Well, he is a goof. He is a goof.
These are like flowers that squirt water at you when you give them to him.
It's just very self-aware.
Yeah.
Whether that's about themselves or their teammates.
Mm-hmm.
So I was initially, as I was thinking about today's podcast, going to do a naughty and nice list. And then they just threw that entire plan out the window because like who would go on the naughty list after this game? Like there's a ton of nice list candidates. But is there anybody at the top of your list, Tori, if we're looking outside of the defense and the whole team all the way around?
So I think I'll say this, and it may catch a lot of heat, but I think Raheem Morris should be at the top of the nice list right now in this moment. I think in the last month, he's taken a lot of heat for the decisions or lack thereof making a decision about the quarterback position. And I think considering Kirk Cousins' contract and his status as a 13-year veteran in this league, the fact that they were willing to pull the trigger and make the switch and make a change that I think today showed us, comparatively speaking, from what the team was against the Raiders and how you felt coming out of that game. And even though they won, it didn't feel like a win for a lot of the fan base, or I think even a lot of the people in the building. Now you fast forward a week later and it's a very different feeling, and you have your first true decisive win. And it's coming off the heels of a moment that, let's be honest, we're going to look back at this moment and it's going to be, I mean,
it's going to be pivotal.
History will, hindsight is 2020, and you get to kind of see where things go. We don't have the opportunity to look at things in hindsight right now because we're actively living through it. But I think you have to give credit where credit is due to Raheem Morris, Terry Fontenot, the decision makers of this organization, that they were willing to make a really big change that, yes, is probably going to bite them financially for a while, when you're looking at kind of what could happen. But I think that took a lot of kahunas, to go out and make that decision. Cojones. What did I say?
Kahunas?
Oh man,
you have to keep that in.
We're staying in there. But yeah, no, I think the direct parallel, the 2-12 teams, right, or 2-win teams that you played Monday night and then Sunday afternoon. Personally, I thought I like the Giants more as a team. I like the collection of players that they have. Again, this is just me personally, than the Raiders. So to do this against a team that, even though, again, another 2-win team, I would favor this one over the Raiders a little bit, speaks volumes. Terrin, is there a player at the top of your nice list or a coach?
Ooh. I mean, I agree with everything Tori said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put Michael Penix Jr. atop the nice list because he did what he needed to do. He played cleanly and he played efficiently, and that's where I'm going to leave that at.
I love that. Jesse Bates goes to the top of my nice list. But what a trio. What a trio we got there. That's a nice, if we're talking about the head coach,
the quarterback,
the defensive captain, and the quarterback, good things have happened. So let's go ahead and wrap it up with this. We're going to kind of talk about the NFC playoff picture really quickly. Tampa Bay is about to kick off against the Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. We don't know the outcome of this. By the time you guys listen, y'all will. So if Tampa Bay loses, that means the Falcons are back in front in the NFC South with only 2 games remaining, but obviously a very pivotal one for Atlanta next week on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders. But if Tampa Bay does come out on top, and they are red hot right now, it means Atlanta is still kind of a game behind them, and maybe also keeping an eye on that wild card picture. So if Washington's win today, which that was, again, crazy. You mentioned it. I'm kind of hoping that it's taken an emotional toll on them and it'll linger throughout the week, and maybe they're not as sharp as they otherwise would be. But Washington would need to lose its remaining 2 games, which would obviously mean one to Atlanta, and Atlanta would need to win out for them to, have a shot at the wild card there. Another scenario would be the Packers would need to lose on Monday night and then lose their remaining 2 games, and the Falcons winning out. So a couple of paths to the wild card there, but obviously the best case scenario is you get Tampa Bay to lose to Dallas. Any thoughts on kind of where the playoff picture is right now?
It's going to be difficult, and you have kind of played your own destiny out of your hands a little bit. You were in firm control of the NFC South, and then you go on a significant losing streak. And so the Falcons have put themselves in this position, but they're still alive. And all you can do is, if you're the Falcons, is just kind of hope that destiny remains at least a little bit in your control.
A Christmas miracle. It's going to be tough sledding, and the odds are not, in the Falcons' favor right now. I think that's very obvious. But they're not dead in the water yet.
They're not. And again, the way that they played on Sunday, it's just a shame that maybe there wasn't one more performance like that this season.
Yes.
And then you're having a different conversation right now. But the way they played against the Giants is deserving of a team to make the playoffs, even if, again, they've had one too many games where maybe they fell short of that. Terrin, any final thoughts on the playoff picture?
No, not until tonight's outcome between Tampa Bay and Dallas is decided.
Yeah, we're all going to be, Terrin's going to be on a flight.
You're going to ruin the surprise when Holly listens to this at 6 a.m.
Tell your mother not to listen to the podcast until after.
Yes, go wake her up when you land and say, hey, I'm going to surprise you. Don't listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
Terrin's, I had this conversation.
We got to go because Terrin needs to catch a flight to get home to her family for Christmas.
So let's just say happy holidays to everybody. It was a great win to go into, the week. But we will be back on Friday. I will not be. I am also traveling, but Tori will take over the reins and have a lovely preview podcast to preview a huge game on Sunday Night Football. So for Tori McElhaney and Terrin Waack, I'm Will McFadden. Thank you guys so much for listening to Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. We will see y'all soon.